Richard, welcome to Waterstones.
Thank you very much.
I live my life on social media, so I actually want to start with your viral social media moments. A lot of people would have seen you joyous at your Oscar nomination.
True.
And joyous outside the house of a certain Barbra Streisand.
Streisand.
Sorry.
Please.
I know I'm with the expert here.
Okay.
But both of those moments speak to something which I think is really important, which is your genuine enthusiasm, because there's no faking that. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about maybe that moment with the Oscar nomination, what it felt like to be walking past a building from your past and to be having this great moment in your present.
Well, it felt like out of body because I had gone to a restaurant called Mediterranean on the corner of Kensington Park Road and Blenheim Crescent, and I had a bedsit there for £30 a week in 1982 when I was a waiter at Tutton's in Covent Garden, which is still there. And I just had lunch with my daughter where we had seen the live feed of the Oscar nominations, and I happened to park my car around the corner and didn't take that on board because I was sort of so obsessed with, will I get nominated or not? And so when we were walking back, I said, oh my God, that's where I lived, in that one bedroom thing, 89 Blenheim Crescent. And my daughter said, talk about it. So she put the camera, phone in my face, and then I did, and then it went viral, as you say. And the whole way that my memoir, Pocketful of Happiness, came about was because, again, on New Year's Day this year, I posted a video saying that my wife had challenged my daughter and I 4 days before she died to try and find a pocketful of happiness in each day. And so I talked about that, and it had an absolutely phenomenal response. You know how the numbers sort of click up. It's like watching gambling machines. And then all the comments that came from it. And then my literary agent called up and said, we've had interest from a publisher. Would you write a book? And I said, absolutely not. I couldn't possibly even contemplate that. And she said, well, there are 2 publishers now who've asked. So I spoke to my daughter, and she said, I think it'll help you through this grieving process to write a book, write a memoir about it. So that's how it came about. And I made a deal with the devil in that I said to the Simon & Schuster, who won the contract, and the people that bid against each other, completely flabbergasted me that they would, that I would write everything out. And if my daughter felt she wanted to veto the whole idea or veto pieces of it, that would be her prerogative. So I said, I can't take any money, and will you accept this as an unspoken in my contract? Now, whether they would have honoured that, I don't know, but they said yes, and she then read it once it was done and fully endorsed it as a real tribute to our 38-year marriage, partnership, and portrait of her mother. So I couldn't have asked for better endorsement. Although she kept me waiting for 3 days, and I speak to her twice a day. So when I didn't hear for 3 days, I was absolutely apoplectic with paranoia, convinced that I'd ruined my relationship with my daughter, and the book couldn't be published. So what was I going to say to Simon & Schuster? Anyway, I blathered on. That's how the book came about.
You say, there's a fantastic quote you shared from Martin Amis, which is, somehow the very act of composition is an act of love.
Bullseye. Yeah.
As you said, that's exactly what you wanted to do with this diary that you're writing. There is this immediacy to the book because it feels like you're sharing everything as it happens and as you feel it.
Yeah.
Was it ever difficult to sit down and write that diary, or did it help, actually?
I've kept a diary since I was 10 years old because when I was 10, I woke up on the back seat of a car and inadvertently saw my mother bonking my father's best friend on the front seat. So I tried God, got no answer. Couldn't tell my father, obviously, couldn't tell my friends. So in order to not feel that I was going mad, I then started keeping a diary and have done ever since. So my sense from having had psychoanalysis when I was 42 that secrets, I think, are toxic, and especially in families. So writing about stuff seems to me the most healing and mental health inducing way of dealing with the world. And because I never honestly anticipated or expected that any of the people that I've met or worked with over the last 40 years in show business could ever have happened to, a boy like me from the smallest country in the Southern Hemisphere, Swaziland, now called Eswatini. A diary, again, as I've gone through decades of my life, is a way of making something that is still seems unreal to me, concrete, that I can look at the end of the day and go, I did meet this person, and this is what they said, and this is what, they did or didn't do. So I found that very helpful. And it also means that you don't ever get a rose-tinted view of something. It is in the immediacy of the day, and I think that is what makes diaries so compelling.
Mm. It's really interesting you say that you think that secrets are toxic, because it felt from reading the book that one of the absolute key themes of it is honesty.
Yes.
You talk about the honesty that was the bedrock of your marriage with Joan.
Yeah.
Also the honesty with which you spoke to each other about her illness.
Yeah.
And the honesty with which you spoke to the healthcare professionals about it, how you dealt with what you were being told.
Yeah.
Is honesty the most important thing, sort of one of the most important things in your life, especially I suppose as somebody who works in a profession which is filled with phonies? Is it really important to have that honesty?
Yes, and the irony of there's a kind of misconception, I think, that people think that actors have to be good liars. When you're acting or interpreting a part, you have to be brutally honest and try and go into the mindset and the emotional makeup of the person that you're playing with as much honesty and integrity as you can muster. Otherwise, nobody would believe it. And I also think that within this book, in being absolutely honest and as vulnerable as you dare be in a diary, it's like a prism in that it radiates out and reaches many more people, because every single person I know has suffered loss, and if they haven't now, they will do. So that is a common denominator for all human beings. So, and I know from the social media that you mentioned that the responses, you see that people say this chimes exactly with what I have experienced, or it's very similar to what I've experienced. So, I mean, what I enjoyed, the positive part about writing the book was that the structure of it begins with the day of my wife's terminal illness diagnosis and ends with her death 8 months later. But within that, there's this elastic seesawing backwards and forwards into the past to illuminate the present, if you like. And it's certainly the way my mind obviously operates, that you're thinking one thing, or you're going along one path, and then suddenly you think, oh my God, that reminds me of, and then you divert down there. So I've always done that, and got berated for doing that at school endlessly by my various teachers, because they said, you've got to stick to the topic. But I think in real life, you do, you smell something, you go, oh my God, that reminds me of that, or you meet somebody and that segues you off into another story. So that's what I've done within this. So hopefully there's enough pocketfuls of joy, happiness and celebration alongside the sort of devastating month by month deterioration of my wife's life.
That thing you were just saying there about how your brain goes all over the place, you say that you had a nickname, and that my pronunciation will not be right here.
Yeah.
The Swazi word Mondulwani, which is...
Oh, but yes. In Swaziland, there's a tradition where you have your actual name. Obviously my name is Richard, but you're then given a name that supposedly encapsulates your physical being as well as your emotional way of being. And mine was called Mondulwani, which means the man who walks with his head in the clouds. And my father's was Mahlaganipani, which meant the man whose brain runs faster than his feet, which absolutely just pinpoints who and what he was like. It's difficult for me to see that about myself, but I certainly know that I spend most of my time daydreaming. I'm also tall, so it seems to be a combination.
Would you say that your relationship with Joan was one where, did she keep you grounded, or did she in fact allow you to have your head in the clouds and to pursue your dreams and to...
She always told me that she was the one who was level and, she was grounded. But, I kind of refuted that in the last 9 months of her life because she expected, once we heard her terminal diagnosis, she said, I genuinely thought that you would lose the plot and that you would go sort of like a headless chicken running in all directions. And I was completely bedrock calm, practical, all of those things. So it was a sort of slight role reversal because she'd always been the one who said, I am the rock in this situation. You're the one who's sort of emotionally all over the place. So we've absolutely balanced each other out in that way.
You mentioned that you had a 38-year relationship, 35 years of that married.
Yeah.
You talk about when you met Joan, when you were a young man, and there seems to be something inevitable about the two of you getting together. Did it feel like that at the time?
Oh, God, no, because she was married. She was 10 years older than me. She had a 7-year-old son. And I went to her for accent classes at the Actors Centre. So I did the 6-week course of that. Irritated her quite a lot because I asked so many questions. And every time that anybody talked about farting, I fell about laughing, which she thought was extremely childish. And I still laugh about farting. So it's only when she asked me to put a Royal Shakespeare Company script on tape for her at her house that I then stayed the evening. And I then realised that her marriage was over and that her husband was living with somebody else in Manchester because he was a TV director. So then everything shifted and, it happened pretty fast. So in that one night, over delicious food. So she went via my stomach. Yeah, and it's, a journalist asked me, what is the secret of your relationship? And I thought about it and I thought, well, there is no secret other than that we began a conversation essentially in January 1983, which ended when she died on the 2nd of September, 2021. And we slept with each other in the same bed for that entire time. So it seems as simple as that. So I'm absolutely horrified when I know, certainly people in my vintage, I'm 65, who tell me, oh no, they haven't slept with their partners or husbands or wives for the last 10 years. I go, what the how do you sustain a relationship if you're not doing the old business? I go, oh, God, the idea is awful. So each to his own.
You share very honestly the experience of those 8 months dealing with that terminal illness and then your grief when Joan dies. And you said something really interesting, which is that it's the kindness of other people
that undoes you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
I think that it's when people do something that is incredibly generous and unexpected that it just discombobulates you because you kind of think, well, I've got to be strong about this and hold it together. My daughter, or I've just been in the south of France and saw people that, because of COVID lockdown, because I have a house there, and I then would meet people in the village who hadn't seen either of us since this happened, and then you're having to console people that are literally falling apart because they finally can say, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. So that is when you see how much people cared for her, and it's very, very touching and life enhancing, but it's a thing that is, it wipes away all cynicism as you see how generous people can be.
Yeah.
But by the same token, on the other side, there are people that I will never speak to again because they've sent maybe one text, and I'm thinking of a particular couple that I've known for 25 years and paid for endless meals and holidays. And when it came down to it, I thought they were in the sort of apex of the pyramid of friendship as I see it, and they proved not to be. So, out.
Was that a surprise?
Yeah, real surprise. And it's not that the old adage, you find out who your friends are. I would say more specifically, you find out what your friends are or what kind of friends they are. And for the most part, 99% of people have been absolutely extraordinary. But I find it very hard not to judge the ones that haven't.
The end of the book is a testament to Joan where you share the words of others, people
Yes,
who knew
all the
and
people
worked
who
with
knew.
her.
Yeah,
It's an extraordinary testament to the woman that she was.
yeah.
What were the qualities, do you think, about her as a person that mean that she had such an impact on people that she worked with?
First of all, she was an incredible teacher. There's an innate gift that she had. So she made people, and especially actors who are so insecure, every time you start a new job, the terror increases as you get older. She had this innate ability to make you feel that you could do it without her, but you had enough talent or skill or whatever it was that you could do it. And imparting that into somebody is something that you can't. That is a real gift. And she also had something else that I have so admired, and was something that my father drummed into me, that you treat a prince or a pauper with exactly the same respect. Mm-hmm. So she was as forthright with Prince Charles, who we've known for 30 years, as she would be with somebody who had just brought her a plate of food. So, and I think that is, in show business, that's fairly unique, because people get, the entitlement that happens with fame and money and success can remove people very, very quickly away from the nuts and bolts of please and thank you, and just, speaking to somebody like they're a human being rather than, you're of no consequence to me because I'm so important. So that innate quality is what she had. So that's Aberdonian, Calvinist, moral compass ethic that was ingrained in her. And, I see it, that's been passed on to our daughter as well. She's exactly the same.
It's a very moving and a very moving book. But I think a testament, obviously, to who she was to those people, and obviously who she was to you. Mm-hmm. Richard, thank you so much for sharing it.
I hope you can cut all this so it's not 5 hours long.
I'm cutting nothing. Everyone gets the full edit. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.